Welcome to the Algarve International Circuit, known locally as the Autodromo International Algarve. We know it as Portimao. Here in Portugal, it is a less than stellar day weather-wise, but we're going to see a lot of hot racing action out there on the track. Qualifying just underway, and I am Jesse Lee, joined by Dan Van Zutphen with Ash Bibby behind the cameras. Welcome in, and Dan, welcome to Portimao, a track that you're quite fond of.
Yes, the 2.8 mile, 4.5 kilometer racetrack that hosts for championships such as the DTM MotoGP World Endurance Championship and F1. It's a legendary track with a really underrated reputation, as we were discussing behind the screens. I'm happy to be here. I hope you are as well, Jesse, because I think we're going to see some fantastic racing today.
I absolutely agree. I adore this racetrack. It's not a flat track like we're so accustomed to. It's got some elevation changes, some tricky corners, some bad cambered corners, some good cambered corners. All in all, it makes for some great racing. And I'll tell you what, I have raced here a bunch over the years, and I'll tell you this track, unlike most others, has an ability to force errors from drivers and keep the racing close. It looks simple, almost academic out there on paper, just looking at the television cameras, but I promise you, it's anything but. These drivers, especially in the GTP class, are going to have to figure out where they can pick up the throttle, where they can't. The downhill corner, of course, going to, 1, 2, 3, going into turn 4 is also very difficult as well, because it's a downhill braking zone. Where do you actually brake for that hairpin? They're all going to have to sort that out, and getting sideways here is a rite of passage. It seems to happen more often than not.
It's such a difficult track. It's got really a bit of everything. It got fast straight, technical slow corners, medium corners, a really fast last turn, as we see Benjamin Hellman coming to his second lap, but it is a little bit of everything, and that's what Jesse said. Because of the nature of this track, the elevation, the difficulties, it really does keep the racing going. But what also is important for the race is qualifying. Almost most important as the race, purely because it's such a difficult track. You're gonna have loads of dirty air in lots of technical, difficult corners, so qualifying really does matter. Stick yourself on pole position and you really truly are a favorite to win this race here today.
World Superbike Championship, various endurance series, Formula, the FIA GT Championships of their variety, FIM World Endurance, so World Touring Car Championship. They all come here, and why? It is a premier racing circuit, potentially the premier circuit here in Portugal. They have other tracks in the country, but this is the one I think a lot of people tend to think of, and underrated it may be, it always tends to put on a show. Just about 3 minutes 45 left here at qualifying. Mikael Sundstrom in the Acura, quickest of the 3 GTPs that we have, a 29.935. That is more than, that's exactly half a second quicker than Bart Macha. Jordan Daly has struggled a little bit here in practice thus far and is a little bit off of the pace. That's uncharacteristic of the driver in the 197. Benjamin Heilman, the quickest in LMP2. It's a 31.9 for them, and it's a huge slide for Harry Conway, and that's kind of what we're talking about. This track is a track that invites you to slide out from under yourself, and that's not the first nor the last time we'll see that here today. But Heilman, the quickest in LMP2, just set a 31.686, and Herford Smith at a 32.6, and Hollins at a 32.7. So close action there between all of those drivers in the LMP2 class, and on to GTD. A 42.599 for Hilden is the quickest, 42.6 the nearest competitor, less than 1/10 behind is Radiani, and then Harry Conway, who we just saw have that devastating slide here. They'll get one more shot at a lap, I suspect, with Conway, but they're currently sitting third at a 43 dead.
Everyone has 4 laps, an out lap, 2 qualifying laps, and an in lap. So you really have only 2 laps to maximize your qualifying position here, and again on Portimao that can be pretty difficult. We can see that the gaps between the GTE field are a little bit large, purely because of the nature of the track. It's quite a long track, lots of turns, and so the gaps will be naturally bigger. We can see Sundstrom in a current pole position. He is a 129.8, followed by Mattia 140.4. 1 tenth behind that is Jordan Daly. So close battle between these guys. Benjamin Hillman has really been the fastest guy driver in the LMP2 field all season long, if I'm not mistaken. And he proved once again with a 31.6 that he is a worthy contender of that LMP2 title. However, the guys behind that, P2 and P3, are really close. Smith just improved his time by 3/10. We can see that Edwards now popping up the board, 133.4. It is for him. He has another lap on his sleeve. Hilden 124.5. Close to him is Rattiani in the Porsche, that is, with a 142.6. Interesting to see. Qualifying is still wide open and with 1 minute to go, so probably one lap for everyone who hasn't done their 2 laps already. It's gonna be interesting. Only 3 GTPs today, not a big field. We saw in Sebring roughly 7-8 GTPs. So yeah, we're gonna see if some more action for these guys is on the table.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting day with the reduced field here at Portimao. What will happen to the championship standings? Our championship title contenders are all here today, but some of the drivers that are chasing may be able to make up some points. Of course, if you don't run the race, you do not get any of the championship points haul, and we're getting to the business end. We'll have championship points after the conclusion of qualifying here today. Looking at chat, just want to say hello and welcome to all of you in our various chats here across the RCI TV networks today. Shout out especially to the Malibus joining us for the very first time. Going to be cheering on Daly today, I've been told, and I'm sure that they will certainly appreciate it. Daly has found the loud pedal in that Porsche. The number 197 SJ&H car has set a comparable time, a 30.528, as all the prototypes are off of the racetrack, and actually everybody's off the racetrack because qualifying is over. Mikael Sundstrom out in front, a 29.838. Well, that is good enough for the pole position in GTP over Macha, which settled by about 5.5 tenths of a second. In third place will be Daly, but absolutely he was running a 31, and he was able to knock that all the way down to a time that is very competitive. Benjamin Heilman on pole again today, a 31.6. Hereford Smith slots in second in LMP2 with a 32.3. So a huge gap from Heilman back to second, it has to be said. And then Holland in third place, a 32.6, a 33.4 for Ted Edwards makes up your LMP2 field. Hilton did take pole in his Audi here today, a 42.4 over Rattiani, a 42.6, a couple of tenths between the top two on the front row of GTD.
Yeah, it's
Conway,
gonna be
Cinco, Roscom, Coco, and Bryant. Sorry, I had to put my glasses on, Dan. Are your 7 qualifiers. In fact, Tom Bryant has just made it to the field and did not actually set a representative lap. You were going to say, Dan?
Well, you sure need to put your glasses on because it's really foggy here today at Autodromo International Algarve. As you can see, it's quite foggy, especially we just saw an angle of the blimp here and you could really see above the track. It's really foggy now. Is it gonna be an impact for the drivers here on track? Really depends. Would be nice if you can see a cockpit shot in this race. So some difficult conditions. Here we go. You can see the distance. It is quite foggy, but you can still see the cars relatively good. You can see the safety cars and the LMDH there pretty well. So not too many difficulties for the drivers today. But yes, Jesse, it is quite foggy.
Well, let's take a look at the championship points as the teams go around for the warm-up lap. Starting off with the GTP crowd, Mikael Sundstrom has a little bit of a lead over Bart Macha in the LMP, or excuse me, the GTP championship over Jordan Daly, and it's 152 to 129 till 203. Those 3 cars, in my opinion, are absolutely still in it, and these are the 3 cars that are here today. If Mikhail Sundstrom has some sort of incident that sees him fall down to 3rd, or maybe not even finish at all, Bart Macha or Daly wins this race, that is going to pretty much tie back up this championship going into the final 2 rounds of the series. You've got Erkma behind them, Tomas Martins, Barthair Bolwinkle, Glenn, Eric Ingman, Dan Van Zutphen, we know that guy, Ritter, and Steven, the 13 cars in GTP. We're going to get back to your foray into GTP driving because you were leading that race 1 week ago. Benjamin Heilman leads it in LMP2, 262 points, has a little bit more of a short up lead compared to some of the other classes. Ashley Holland in 2nd place, 216, has some work to do, will need to win one of these races, and is certainly going to need Heilman to falter somewhere to get back in this, but it's closer for the battle for P2. Holland is not too far in front of Hereford Smith, 197. Ted Edwards has 167. Alex Pilbeam rounds out your top 5 with 155. Behind them, Kamferger, Leonard, Marciello, Vignier, Cardes, Malcolm, and Deleli is your top 12. From LMP2 down to GTD, Alexander Strutsenko leads at 245 championship points over Damir Makhmudov, 215. 5 points behind them in 3rd place. Radiani has 210. Tikhonov with 183. A little bit of a gap back to Kupe Sinyov in the 5th place position. Roskim, Koku, Meshryakov, Hilden, Shansky, Bryant, Roberts, and Conway are your 13 drivers in the class still alive. So Dan, let's get back to it. You have driven these GTP cars. You know firsthand how good and how tricky they are to drive. You were even leading a little bit last week. Sum up your experience in the top class.
It of course depends which car you take. The BMW has different characteristics than the Cadillac and so on. But of course, depending on setup wise, they can be difficult on the rear. The Porsche, for example, has a really good front end and is pretty stable. So I'm not surprised if Jordan Daly can maybe go for the win or a little place higher up. But it's a good class. Challenging, but still safe to say that it's definitely not as difficult as a GTE or an LMP2. However, I don't have a lot of affinity with those, but the GTP category is interesting, and it's starting here as well, since they're making the advantage of that pole position and is again flying by the straight here. Machia isn't really in the mirrors of Jordan Daly. He doesn't really have to look in the mirrors there, but it's a clean start for the GTP field. It's probably a clean start for the LMP2 field as well. We can see them just coming behind in the 2nd turn right now. I'm worried about the GTD field. We have a
GTD, there's been one.
Stenko, yes, yellow flags all around, Jesse.
Well, it looks like Harry Conway and Strutsenko have had an incident. I don't know if anybody else was involved, but they're going to be 3 wide nearly down into turn number 1. And oh my goodness, Harry Conway just did not realize that Strutsenko was on the apex. Conway was closing in like nobody was there. And of course, there was the 32 of Strutsenko, and there was an additional car that got involved. That was your pole sitter, Hilden, that got a piece of that one.
That is absolutely huge, and a rare sight we see, or just had no awareness and didn't know Strutsenko was there. So really special to see. He will be bringing that car back to the pits probably, because the bodywork is absolutely shattered on the left side, that is. So it was really interesting, Jesse. Made for some, good chaos at the beginning, but not something we really want to see, of course, as you can see.
Hilden's had an additional incident.
Indeed, a spin possibly on its own. Questions mark? Oh, that's Hilden.
That's a choke point on the racetrack, Dan, as you well know. That could have been
Yeah.
contact. All the different lines sort of converge, and
Oh!
Ted Edwards has had a big accident in the same place actually, and that is going to lead them to towing back to the pit lane. We're going to see if we can see what happened to
Oh.
Strutsenko. This is the Coco though. They have spun off of the racetrack. We mentioned that that was going to be a common thing here, and also
Hmm.
that's what happened. That's what happened to Strutsenko. Strutsenko just stopped to try and figure out where Coco was going to go to stay out of further trouble, and they get going. So yeah, a
Yeah.
slide here from Hilden.
Yep.
Oh, so this is Hilden. Hilden spins off himself. Coco did the same thing. This is all in the same relative corner. It's
Yes.
a very difficult one as well because it is, of course, I think that's turn 11, Portimao, and it's downhill, and it's almost a 90-degree right.
Yeah, so what really happened there with Hilden, he outbraked himself, tried to get an alternative line, a little better exit, but he just carried too much speed. And with cold tires, it's so easy to lose the rear here on iRacing in any car. And sadly, Hilden was a victim of losing that rear end. And so he spun around. Quite unfortunate, because if he didn't, he might have actually gained some places. But right now, he's last in the GTD category, Jesse, P7.
Yeah, that's not good. We've seen that happen to the pole sitter over the course. It's actually been the rule, not the exception at these races. The pole sitter tends to not have the most stellar finishes here for whatever reason, qualifying one thing, racing the other. I think Hilden was put in that position not of his own making, and then, of course, just ended up having a mistake of their own. How much of the damage that they would have occurred in the passenger door, how much of that would have attributed to that incident? I think it's negligible. I think that was just a mistake early in the race on colder tires.
Yeah, and it looks like he can manage the damage. It doesn't seem too bad actually. And I was about to say, oh, it
Oh,
does
it's a
sound
big
too
one!
bad, and it's a huge spin-off for Conway there. Loses the back end, and Hilden collides a little bit at the front. But just as I was saying, it doesn't sound too bad. It actually is too bad, and you can see there the Porsche of Conway also dives in pit lane. Another replay, loses the rear. Hilden can't avoid him, spins him around even more, and well, that's your race pretty much gone, Jesse.
For the second time in as many laps, Harry Conway falls into Hilden's lap, and Hilden is probably going to be wondering what on earth they have to do to avoid incident. They had to avoid several of them on the first couple of laps, and two of them in as many laps was Harry Conway. That's unfortunate for both Conway and Hilden there. Your pole sitter down to 6, and that has put this gentleman up into the lead of the race. It's Radiani in the number 29 Porsche leading the way here, 3.4 over Theobald Roscom, and I don't think we had Roscom this high up. Tom Bryant has gone from 7th to a podium position here in the opening 2.5, 3 laps.
Amazing by the Mercedes GTD driver. However, he needs to have a quick look in his rearview mirror because Stutsenko is behind him. Just did a 143.9, which is the fastest lap of a GTD car. And well, if you're lapping roughly around 1.8 seconds quicker a lap, Tom Bryant really does need to look in his rear view mirror. But of course, it's Portimao. Still, a lot of mistakes can happen. I wouldn't be surprised if the tires haven't catch their optimal heat, optimal tire temperature, and we can see the Audi of Hilden possibly battling Coco. Indeed, he has the slipstream on to T1. It's a really long straight with, of course, the elevation change. Really cool to see. But that Audi, maybe because of that front touch, just doesn't have the legs on that BMW. Can he do the switchback, trying to take the optimal line there on the outside of Coco? On the outside of Coco, he does it on the outside of Coco. Now coming into everything. And it's a spin for the BMW of Coco. What happened there, Jesse?
That was just contact. It was just sort of squeezed there. I think Hilden wanted to stay to the outside and maybe do the crossover, and Coco just kept coming over there. I don't know if that Coco was expecting Hilden to yield there, but he's under no obligation to do so, and he doesn't back out, and Hilden doesn't realize that Coco is going to keep coming over because that's what Hilden's trying to do. He's trying to force him to sort of round off his corner a little bit more to give him room. and maybe take a run at him through turns 4 and 5, but he was unable to do that. It leads to contact, in my opinion, though. Coco spins off of Hilton's nose. I don't think Hilton did anything wrong there.
It seems really like a racing miscommunication, you could say. Both drivers didn't really knew what they wanted of each other, who's gonna do what, and it really resulted in a, you could almost say, silly incident there. The stewards will probably have a look at that after the race, but it's unfortunate. It could still be worse, of course. Conway, we saw it, is currently, I think he's out again, but he is 2 laps down in P7. Jordan Daly qualified last in the GTP field. At last really does sound harsh because it is a P3, 5.9 seconds behind Matja, and so the GTP order hasn't changed yet. See if that will change anytime soon, Jesse. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think this might be what we have in the GTP field, but Bart Matja and Mikael Sundstrom, they're frenemies, if you will. One driver, Mikael Sundstrom, racing for nearly on pace, and Bart Matja, Connection Lost Racing. They have had I'll say, more than a few battles, friendly battles on the racetrack over the years in multiple different sims, and it's really cool to see Bart Matja and Sundstrom still at the top of sim racing and still battling each other for wins after all these years, albeit now in a interesting way to me, seeing them do it in GT racing all the years, and technically this still is GT racing, but it's GTP, and in those color schemes still going at it. Bart Matja, though, is closing in. It was a 31.19 for Sundstrom last time through. It was a 31.10. So a whole, so just about a 1,000th quicker than, a tenth rather, sorry, just about a tenth quicker was Bart Matja that time through. And of course, Sundstrom now hitting some of this GTD traffic, and they always are less accommodating to the first car through versus the rest of the field, just simply because being maybe caught unawares. But Sundstrom leading the race, Bart Matja is catching him, so maybe there is still hope for a fight here. We've seen this go back and forth over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, indeed, and let's see if we see it even more go back and forth. But about the traffic management, because it's really interesting, it really is a reflection of the situation you're in when you're managing traffic. Because, well, Matja, he and Sundstrom, they both want to get by quickly, the traffic as quickly as possible. But a driver like Jordan Daly, he's 6.2 seconds behind him. And with 10 minutes past, he might already be like, well, I'm not really going to battle these drivers anyway. So, GTD driver, if you want more space, you can have it. As we can see some really interesting traffic management.
Oh no!
Tom Bryant going into the wall there by a touch of Sutsenko. More action, more chaos, Jesse.
I don't think he quite made it to the wall, but it's going to be a 3-wide situation gone wrong here. They're all just trying to occupy space. No give and take, and there he goes. That's off into turn 6. And that's before they get to 7 and 8. That could have been a lot worse. The gravel trap doing its job, but 3 into 1 does not go. And the odd one out is Tom Bryant. That promotes Strutsenko, the quickest car on the racetrack in the GTD field, up into 3rd. Bryant down to 4th.
Yeah, but he does have really no threat from behind, because Coco currently lapping 147 is 15.2 seconds behind Tom Bryant. Bryant will obviously be frustrated. Miscommunication, I think it was again. Tom Bryant didn't really feel comfortable with those GTPs cars aside him, and so he swerved to the right a little bit too much. Trutsenko was unaware of that, just touched him, didn't hit the wall, fortunately for Tom Bryant, because I said earlier it could have been a lot worse. Tom Bryant on its way again, almost getting lapped by the GTPs. I think that is Benjamin Heilman. If I am correct, yes, it is Benjamin Heilman in the green LMP2. 6 seconds behind is Hutford Smith in the 349 LMP2, and so this battle for the lead doesn't quite rage on, but it could well swell up in the coming minutes, Jesse.
Yeah, it certainly could. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Algarve circuit, known as Portimao, just a couple of things. It has a seating capacity of around 100,000 spectators, and they have filled that on more than a couple of occasions. It's crazy. This racetrack is only 15 years old. It was opened in October of 2008. And on top of that, we mentioned in the intro that so many different racing series have raced here over the years, too many to count. So we'll talk about the racetrack a little bit more rather. Besides, it's a 4.65 kilometer circuit, or 2.89 miles if you prefer old school measurements. It's 15 turns. Lewis Hamilton has the quickest lap of all time around here at a 1:18.750. I dare say we will not be threatening that here today with our lap times in the GTP category. Man, F1 cars were really fast back in the day.
Yeah, indeed. But of course, Valtteri Bottas has the fastest qualifying lap, not race lap, qualifying lap, a 1:16.466 with an average speed of 136 miles per hour. And indeed, those, especially the W11 EQ performance of 2020 was rapid fast. But I digress, because we are watching LMP2s, GTTs, and GTPs, not F1 cars.
But
These
Dan,
cars,
what's
yes?
the difference between a GTP and a Formula One car?
Well, of course, the GTP I think that they're closed wheel. Oh no, that is Jordan Daly into the wall there. He was already
Where
behind
is that?
the leaders in the GTP class. But just I think that is almost to the.
Oh, that's in Portimao. That's turn 10, and he's carrying so much speed. He made it all the way to the wall.
That is a really weird incident, because he was turning in, then the rear snaps, and it was just gone. You couldn't save that really. Sort of if you misjudge the corner. I think it's a blind corner as well, so it's really easy to misjudge that. And he's now getting passed by the LMP2 of Benjamin Hellman there. Could he go into the pits? I think he has a lot of damage. This could well be a lot of repairs for Jordan Daly. But that was a really weird incident, Jesse.
Yeah, normally whenever you go off in Portimao, which is the name for, it's the name of the circuit, yes, but it's also the name of turn 10, the turn 10-11 complex. When you go off there, typically what happens is in a slower speed car is you just spin off. You don't even make it to that gravel. The gravel trap is really only something that comes into play for things like GTPs and Formula cars. But to make it even past that just shows you how much speed that car must have been carrying to make it all the way to the back wall. The good news is the speed was dissipated to the point you notice that no body panels fell off of that GTP, meaning that at least some of the impact had been sort of softened a bit, if you want to call it that, by the long trip out there. But it's an uphill trip in the gravel to make it to that wall. So that's so strange to see a car go off that far, but luckily they were able to drive away from that and not have to tow. Jordan Daly, as you said, Dan, is in the pit lane. Fight here in the GTD field. And yeah, they're trying to allow these LMP2s through a little bit, and that has broken up the battle. Strutsenko, you can see Roscom in the blue and white Porsche in front. That's the battle for P2.
Yeah, that is a not so streamlined looking BMW front end there. As you can see, the number 32 BMW just touched the LMP2, the rear of the LMP2 a little bit. We can have a replay. That's the LMP2. Strutsenko, oh, he needed to slow down, and it was a domino effect, Jesse. Yeah. Flashing with the lights indeed. And spoken about weird incidents, this was another one.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But you know what? If you are Strutsenko, and I don't know if Strutsenko realizes this, but that LMP2, that hit Roscom as well. So yeah. Roscom has a little bit of rear end damage. Strutsenko has a little bit of front end damage. And I think that sort of will cancel out just a little bit. Ted Edwards, who had returned to the pit lane, had come back out, but is going to go off there. Is that in 13 where he's gone off there?
I think it is. Yeah. Yes, that is.
13's a really awkward corner because you come from Portimao through 11 down 12. It's a roller coaster downhill. You hit the bottom of 12 and you go back up the hill to 13. And the problem with 13 is it's not technically a hairpin, but it is a very sharp corner. You cannot spot where your exit is. And on top of that, whenever you get a little brave on the braking going uphill, it flattens out, it plateaus at the top, and you can completely shoot off the race course. I suppose that's what Ted has just done.
Yeah, indeed it is. And if you ever supposed and had a debate with your mate, what is the best brand of seat?
Oh! What on earth happened
No.
there?
Internet connection, I think, because we saw the Porsche disappear for a while. Yeah,
Oh, no,
yeah,
right you are, Dan. Well spotted.
yeah. That was really interesting, and it didn't even look like contact, but there definitely was some contact. The Porsche of Rosca definitely having some sort of connection issues there. That's part of virtual racing. It's unfortunate, and I think that is number 8. LMP2 of that Edwards already a lap down. If your race couldn't
this
get
again.
any worse.
Oh, so that's actually what happened. Ted Edwards is
Oh.
sort of frightened by that. He must have saw what we saw, or not what I saw. I didn't see anything. You saw the incident, and I think that kind of frightened Ted Edwards there for a moment. Had to regather his thoughts and his bearings, but he has been able to make his way around that car. Just a scary moment, something that can happen. You don't ever want to see that occur. Was that you're more versed in this kind of thing than I am? Was that actual contact? Would that have registered as incident markers, or
Yes.
was that just? Oh, so it would have done. All right.
Yeah, I think it definitely did. Of course, they will both have damage by it, so iRacing probably has registered that as incident points and contact, possibly. It's just unfortunate, but it's also how iRacing works. It is really vulnerable to netcode. It's been a thing of the past, really, in iRacing, and they are working on it, but they just can't get the netcode fully away in the simulators. Other simulators do have it as well, but it's just unfortunate. It's really a part of virtual racing, especially in this sim, Jesse.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you know, it's the lesser of the evils, and that sometimes it can still catch you out just a little bit. But here's the way that things have gone. Strutsenko has come into the pit lane. Remember, they were fighting Rosca for P2, but they have decided on lap 9 that was the correct time for the number 32 BMW in the GTD class to come in. They are the only car without major incident to have come into pit lane thus far, and that's very odd for a GTD to come in that early. Might that have been a response due to the front end damage on that car?
Yeah, I think it is, and because it's really a gamble. It really depends how big your damage is, because it could only be 5/10 a lap, but over the span of the current 40 minutes, do I lose more damage by not repairing the damage and losing 5/10, maybe a second a lap, or can I repair it in pit lane so I lose even less? So you will lose time, but with what strategy will you lose less time? Oh, there's Jordan Daly locking up in the hairpin there, but Jordan Daly not really having the best of races, Jesse. That was Tora Vip, the chicane there, but Jordan Daly currently well behind the leaders. But I digress again, so it's really a strategy. With what strategy do I lose less time, really? That's it, I think, Jesse.
Yeah, something has happened to Tom Bryant, potentially. We're going to take a look here. Here is the connection lost racing number 244 Mercedes.
Wide line.
Looks like, yeah, a very wide line, unusual. You can diamond off or V off the corner in that, but that was not what that was. That was a constant radius turn just off the apex by about a full meter and a half there, but they keep going. I don't know if a lot of these drivers, Dan, we talk about Portimao being underrated, and I totally agree with you. I love this racetrack. It's one of my favorite tracks in the new WC game as well. But I fell in love with this back in the Project Cars days, which I believe it was in that game, and it's so fun and to race here. It's such a different challenge than any other racetrack. It flows really nicely. You can have really good side-by-side battles. We haven't seen any of those today that have not come to blows, but in general, you have to trust us. You can have really good side-by-side battles. The track's wide enough. You can undercut people. It's just a fun track. It works for sprint racing, endurance racing. It's very rare that a modern circuit, and this is a modern circuit, can give you all of those things, but there you have it here. And it's a lovely circuit, but I worry that the inexperience of a lot of drivers, because it is underrated, they don't have the track time here. We talk about Daly having their struggles early. Ted Edwards has gone off the course a couple of times. There's been contact, lack of knowledge from the track could lay into that as well. I think all of that has attributed to some of the mistakes. I think it's also attributed to some of the trepidation we've seen with how they're taking some of these corners. They're not on full attack mode. They're more just making sure they're getting around.
Yeah, and I was just about to say the exact same thing as you. This track is quite underrated, isn't in the most of sims, and therefore there are a lot of people that don't have a lot of track time. So basically, I just repeated what you said, Jesse, but I absolutely agree with you there. And I maybe can give an explanation to why it's such a good track and is almost a good track for everything, endurance, sprints, etc. It's not designed by Herman Tilke. So that's a plus already. So, you know, probably one of the main contributors to... Oh, and that's contact again, or was it? Hilden, yeah, it is contact because Hilden is slowing down, or possibly going to pit lane. Another weird incident, Jesse.
Oh, Hilden has towed that car back to pit lane. You're absolutely right. After the contact, that was a weird incident. I didn't quite catch what happened. I was too busy making sure I was correct that Ricardo Pena was the architect of the racetrack. He was. And I am unfortunately aware that Hilden was the architect of that incident.
Yeah, that's it's a blind corner, that corner again. So it's so difficult to get your braking because that particular corner doesn't have a lot of braking markers. So some people choose a braking marker on the track that is someone go, oh, that's Matcha actually spinning off in the chicane there. Really weird incident because it looked like he already had the traction down and then spun anyway. So yeah, interesting. A lot of things going on, especially at Torre Vip turn 5, the chicane. So interesting, and we can see Jesse drivers struggling all around still with 35 minutes to go.
Yeah, I think it comes with that inexperience at the racetrack, and that's one of those things where if you've not had a day go to plan, if you are Ted Edwards, if you're Daly, if you're Hilden or Conway, by the way, nobody's quit. That's the other thing too. Applaud to the drivers. Nobody's quit. They're having a hard day, some of them, but they're not quitting, and that's the most important thing. You don't get better by not doing. I always say that most people are not visual learners. They learn by doing, they learn by repetition, and that's sort of what racing is. So they'll take this race on the chin. They'll learn some things here. Maybe the setup wasn't particularly to their liking 20 minutes into a run. Maybe the aero balance was a little bit off today, but they can take that with them. And the next time they come back here, they'll be better off for it. And for those that are getting a little bit better on with the racetrack, you know, you're absolutely astounded with just how well you're doing today. Benjamin Heilman has a 17-second lead out in front of this field. That's absolutely crushing it. Radiani has a 15-second lead, and something has happened to Bart Macha. They were less than a second and a half behind Mikhail a few laps ago, but now Bart is 11 and a half seconds behind.
Yes, that is because we just saw him spin at Torre Vip, I think, a few turns ago. I think this is the exact same incident. No, it's not the exact same incident. You were right, Jesse. Or is it? It was another race replay, so this is the exact same incident, but that's why Matcha lost time. And looking at the cars of Holland, I was going to... Oh, yeah, he's really struggling. So this is what happens when you spin in iRacing. It's what I experienced last time at Sebring. Sadly, it was me fatal. So whenever you spin on a hot track or a cold track in iRacing, your tires get so warm, you really do have to be careful the next turn, which I suppose is realistic. If you don't, you can get spin around again, and it tends to get worse and worse and worse, but you really have to cool those tires down. Otherwise, you have no traction on the rear, no grip in the corners in the rear, and it could really cost you fatal. It happened to me last time again. So I'm an experienced driver if we're gonna talk about hot rear wheel tires. I wanted to talk about this livery, the Yorkshire livery.
Oh, here we go.
If you were ever wondering with your mates, you know, I prefer Yorkshire tea, I prefer Tetley tea. You can now vote in the poll and decide what tea brand is the best once and for all. I voted for Yorkshire tea. What did you vote on, Jesse?
I don't reveal my vote. It's like a birthday wish, but I will say that this poll is flawed. This poll is not official, and my democratically elected nation refuses to acknowledge the validity of such a poll that leaves off such brand giants such as Lipton. And of course, without Twinings on there, it is not a valid poll. No, it's not. No, see, your poll is. I'm having an argument with my my producer, by the way. No, your logic is flawed. Your poll is flawed, and your democracy is flawed. Get back at me whenever you are unbiased, sir.
All right, well, that's Jesse's Lee opinion on different teas. So
That's just my
32
opinion on
minutes.
Ash at this point.
We really do digress, as we can see. Rattiani, this is, by the way, we haven't touched on Rattiani yet, but this is really good for his championship hopes, because he's currently, if I'm not mistaken, third in the championship, 210 points. Alexander Stritstenko is on 245 points. Damir Makhmutov is on 250 points, like we saw at the beginning of the stream. Rattiani could, turn this championship battle on its head, Jesse.
No, you're absolutely right, Dan. That's very well observed, because Rattiani leading this race, not something I expected to see. Strutsenko was up there earlier, and now, of course, have had their issues. They're back down to fourth place. They're 23 seconds off of third place, but they have done their pit stop, remind. They did that quite early on.
Yes.
About 15 or so minutes ago now. So they will stand to gain some of these spots back. But even if Strutsenko finishes third, that's going to be a huge points haul for Rattiani, and that will just about close that gap back up. If Strutsenko finishes second, I don't think he's going to be on for the win after the day he's had, Strutsenko. But if he finishes second in front of Theobald, I reckon Strutsenko will still be the leader of the championship by a decent amount. I wouldn't call it a safe cushion, but a cushion nonetheless. But as it stands right now, Rattiani is going to close this back up, potentially even take P2 in the championship. Jordan Daly's nightmare of a day continues. The exact same from Bart Macha. By the way, Mikhail has had an issue somewhere on the racetrack. That 11-second gap has disappeared.
Yes, 1.8 seconds it is. Possibly a producer S can find the mistake. Nothing. S has got absolutely nothing. So it's a mystery. And that tells us that it's probably a self-inflicted mistake, because the replay service we use always detects any collisions, any barrier collisions, any damage. And if it doesn't, then that probably means that it is a self-inflicted mistake, or we lost a lot of time in the pit lane. Could also be a possibility. I didn't really quite catch if they did pit, and they didn't pit as well. So indeed, it's a self-inflicted mistake, but who knows what it was, Jesse?
Yeah, well, we can assume it was a mistake, but it wasn't the last lap. Sundstrom ran a 31.0 to Bart Macha's 31.4, so whatever happened, it happened prior to the last lap. So sometime in the last three, that gap, which was pretty commanding, has all but evaporated. But now going back the other way, the last time through was a 31.0, right, for Sundstrom. He's going to cross the line now. It's going to be a 30.8, even quicker still. Bart Macha unable to hang with that at a 31.8, a full second slower that time through for Bart Macha. So the mistake has not really cost Mikhail Sundstrom anything from nearly on pace. They are continuing to pound around here with a commanding pace ability, regardless of whatever occurred, that put them so close within 2 seconds of the car behind them.
Look at that car driven by Mattia. It seems that he definitely has a lot of understeer in that car in the first couple of corners, and has a little bit of oversteer. You can see it, how much he needs to turn that wheel to actually make the corner, which tells me the setup isn't that optimized for Portimao, but I can see Mattia not actively struggling with the car, like wrestling it around, but he probably does have some struggles with the car. I can just see the understeer and a little bit of oversteer from time to time on that car. Regardless of that, everything else does seem pretty smooth sailing. He's of course also a little bit in the dirty, so that could be a little contributor to the understeer and maybe oversteer. But interesting to see the onboard of Mattia, currently 2.5 seconds, which tells me he's not gaining on Sundstrom.
Yep. Phil Roberts has joined us in chat and asked a very interesting question. Do you prefer the film A Bug's Life or the film Ants? I don't know anyone who would pick Ants over A Bug's Life. I just feel like A Bug's Life is way too well produced. But an interesting question nonetheless. And if you, Dan, do you have any idea what I'm even on about?
Well, you are on about films, I guess, but if so, I haven't seen neither of them. No.
It is a bit before your time, right? So
yeah,
if you're
I'm
not
only
in the
19,
habit,
so you know, you guys are old compared to me.
yeah, if you're listen, I'm gonna take it. Our producer did not take that line down, which is weird because normally he is horizontal. I agree with you, Dan. To be fair, I'm 100% on your side. But yeah, if you're not in the habit of watching old animated films, then yeah, you wouldn't know what we're on about. But A Bug's Life was a Disney Pixar film from way back in day, and it spawned many copycats. And one of the copycats was a film called Ants, spelled with a Z. And it was sort of more of the adult version of the Pixar film.
Ah.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely are digressing. Jordan Daly having a massive incident there in the wall. Yes, definitely. It's not been the day for Jordan Daly, has it, Jesse?
No, it sure hasn't. Another spin there. The tricky elevation changes and the throttle pickups just not working for Daly today. That was a more substantial impact on many corners of that SJ&H Porsche. They have elected to tow that car back to the pit lane rather than drive it back. Hilden has DNF'd, the pole sitter in GTD. The pole sitter curse has continued with us here through this round at Portimao. That Audi has officially DNF'd. They can reconnect at any time they like, but the damage has been done on the timing and scoring board. Daly, the only other car in the pit lane. Sundstrom and Mattia still less than we'll call it about 3 seconds apart right now. The two leading GTPs still yet to pit. We expect them in imminently. And then after that, potentially the LMP2 cars of Heilman, Hereford, Smith, and Holland. Ted Edwards, of course, is a lap down, but has done a pit stop officially, but they did it so early. I wonder if they will need to make another one for fuel. We'll see. Radiani, Roskim, and Bryant, the top three in GTD currently, still yet to do a stop.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it, these two, because these two have constantly been on each other's necks, really. I haven't seen a shot where they aren't in the same frame, really. So I'm excited for this battle. It's probably going to be, it's going to be a little bit of guesswork who's going to come out on top. It could be a strategy play, of course. I mean, Holland might pit sooner than Hitchford Smith, and that could result in a position change. But it's lovely to see these cars just in a radius of 1 second. And Ratiani just had an incident behind the Porsche there, coming onto the braking zone. Oh, and that's a little touch. Didn't anticipate that Porsche too well, spun around as a result. But Jesse, he still remains in the lead.
Yeah, see, that's the problem too, is that it's not only the other class of cars you're worrying about, it's the cars in your own class they have to worry about too. We've seen a lot of the issues down into these braking zones because one car gets in there, they're a bit timid, the other one's absolutely on the limit, and without knowing exactly where everybody's sort of pace level or comfort level is, you're getting a lot of that contact back and forth. We just saw it there. That was Radiani nearly having a disastrous moment. And by the way, with stuff like that, that sort of calls into question where's Strutsenko fill in all of this? They may have had a couple of little bumps. They may have come in early, but they definitely pitted late enough in the run, or, well, late enough is an arguable term, but they pitted late enough so that they can make it to the end. No problems there. And with incidents like that with Radiani, with Roscoe and Tom Bryant having their foibles off at the racetrack, where does Strutsenko fit into all this? He may end up being the dark horse for this race now.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. If you can keep the pace up, he might be indeed, as you say, the dark horse. But it quite is a big ask. But it's not impossible. I mean, 15.4 seconds or 16 seconds to P3, 15 seconds to or 30 seconds to P2, and then another 45 seconds to P1. So he really does need to hurry up if he wants to get that victory. But never say never. Everyone can still crash at the very last corner of this race, and you can still get away with the win, Jesse.
Yeah, you absolutely can. We haven't really talked about the weather since the offing, but the weather is, it's a bit interesting. It's completely overcast. It's very hazy here today. And by the way, if you are thinking about visiting Portugal, it's not usually like this. It's usually quite lovely. Today, though, very overcast, very hazy. Visibility is limited. You can see that on some of the wider panning shots of the track, how hard it is to see. That's just a distraction to the drivers. There is enough visibility that it doesn't really come into play immediately. So that's not what's causing some of these incidents, but it does play on a little bit of distraction when it is sort of gray and the light level is a little bit lower than it otherwise normally would be. Bart Macha lost a bunch of seconds, call it 3 or 4, just on that little slide there, and that has triggered Mikael Sundstrom down to the pit lane, deciding now is the correct time to come in. Bart Macha's spin there happening sort of Sagres right before Gallop, I think is what that was.
Yeah, this is the weird thing about Portimao, isn't it? A lot of corners are pretty similar, and because of the elevation change and the camera angles, we can't really, apart from like the chicane here in the first bit, sometimes we just can't figure out where they are on track because the curbs look the same. Sure, there is some elevation change, but because of the camera angles, we can't quite figure always out where they are. And what I was talking with those rear hot tires earlier in the stream, I can see it again really clearly with Bart Macha. We can see it, he just had a spin once again, and that rear is all around. So it's really difficult. I haven't driven the Cadillac so much for myself, but definitely just in any GTP again, spinning hot tires is a no-go, and Macha, Jordan Daly also do demonstrate that really well. Sundstrom, we think had a spin as well, so no GTP driver being fully clean here today, and we've talked about it before. That's probably because of the nature of this track and so on. Fact remains that Macha still needs to do a pit stop, and in fact, Jesse, he is coming in.
Oh, and he was on the limit too, coming into the pit lane. By the way, just confirming that accident one lap ago for Macha was in Sagres and Galp, and they were able to drive away from that. But now down the pit lane, no issues on Mikael Sundstrom's pit stop, now on an out lap. Bart Macha comes in 1 lap later, and we'll see where they stack up. I would imagine they're going to be about 7 or 8 seconds apart when it's all said and done. Hereford Smith has made a pass here on Holland for P2 and LMP2. All these cars still yet to do their pit stop, and they're in flying formation for the Yorkshire T cars. And you can guarantee if it's Yorkshire T, our broadcaster will absolutely find them. The second week in a row that they've had to sort of race each other or coordinate, I think is the correct word, coordinate with each other. Hereford Smith up to P2 potentially again, I think, as they're going to come down into pit lane and get to the 60 kilometer limit at the line on the button, and no issues there. Benjamin Highland has pitted out of the lead, and that will mean that Holland will take the lead in the class for the time being.
Yeah, a strategic lead, just as I had last time. Not leading the race, just purely a strategic lead. If he comes in, he will probably, highly likely, unless Benjamin Hellman makes a mistake, lose the lead once again. And coming into turn 5 doesn't seem so nice and smooth sailing. He does miss the apex, not ideal for a lap time, but he can go with it. Herford Smith is battling, of course, with Holland. We've seen this all race long, 18 minutes to go, and with 18 minutes to go, Jordan Daly spins around once again. Quite unfortunate, but once again those rear hot tires aren't really ideal, and Jordan Daly has to cool them down once again. Well, 18 minutes ago, we've seen so much, and there is a lot yet to come, especially with the spinning, etc. And overall, it's endurance racing. We've seen some real classic endurance racing scenarios, and so far, Jesse, I have loved it.
Yeah, there's courses for horses and all that as well, and maybe this just isn't one for Daly, and we'll get to some of the other tracks in the last couple of rounds of this championship. Maybe it'll be different at Mugello, maybe it'll be different at Le Mans as well for them, but right now just not gelling with the racetrack. I think that's Ted Edwards trying to make their move down the inside of a GTD car. They're going to be able to get it done, but it's going to be a little bit of an incident again. He's out-braked himself, and that time that has happened in Torrey Vip in turn number 5 as it's going downhill. We talk about this, it's very, very sketchy on the brakes, and he locks up even to keep her from going even further.
Yeah, managed it well, Ted Edwards, and GTP coming right around the inside. He wanted to rejoin the track, but saw the GTP in any case and decided to just avoid contact, of course, as he should. But Torrey Vip really being a challenge for every driver on the track. We've seen spins, we've seen lockups. It's really a torrential corner to drive on today. And it's interesting, as we can see, that Edwards doing all in his powers to lap
survival
the GTD.
mode.
Yes, indeed, as you say, survival mode, but just to lap the traffic. But yeah, interesting again. See if he can keep it clean this time.
Holland has come into the pit lane and is now out and has fallen to P2 for the time being. Looks like Holland had a better stop than Herford Smith and now has a 3-second gap as we just see Ted Edwards come in. So that question I raised ended up being a valid one. Ted Edwards pitted so early that he did have to come in again. So his second stop of the day for the number 8 HWT Dallara. And that will mean that only 3 cars have yet to do their pit stop. In the GTP category, Sundstrom has a 1.2 second lead from Bart Macha. That's all that's in it there. Looked like Bart Macha just had a quicker stop on the whole. And when I say a quicker stop, I mean it was several seconds quicker, in fact, was Bart Macha's stop for Connection Lost Racing versus the nearly on pace Acura. So that's interesting. And also the last lap, of course, quite a bit quicker as well. Nearly a full second, 7/10 of a second quicker. The last lap was Bart Macha to Mikael Sundstrom. Could that just be cold tires?
Could that be a change of tires? Indeed. Did Sundstrom change tires? Did Macha change tires? Because Macha maybe has the tire advantage now. Who definitely does have the tire advantage, or is in any case lapping really quick, is Benjamin Heilman. 1:32.592, currently the fastest lap in the LMP2 class, and with a 28.7 seconds gap, it looks unlikely that Benjamin Heilman will lose that lead anytime soon. Who might lose the lead, as Jesse was talking about, is Sundstrom, because well, it's a 1.1 second gap, 0.9 seconds gap. It's fluctuating between the 1 second gap now, and Macha is just coming closer and closer, as he says, another fastest lap, a 30.5 for Macha, a 30.6 for Sundström shows how competitive the field is. Even in such a late stage of the race, they both are clocking fastest lap after fastest lap, which is impressive to see, but it's probably more impressive to see which one of these two is going to end up with the win, Jesse.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I hate to interrupt this riveting battle for the overall win, but I will do, because I've got to ask you some questions, because what I always do is chat commands. Bill Roberts has asked you specifically, Don, if you know, have you seen the Osmosis Jones film?
No, I have not.
All right, we're going to have to watch it. We're going to have a movie night here for the broadcast
Oh,
department
God.
and watch Osmosis Jones, I think, is what we're going to have to do. It's an absolutely brilliant film. We're going to get Les in there as well. He's also not seen the film, as Bart Macha continues to close in a 30.556, the quickest lap in the class all day long. Heilman just set the quickest lap all day in the LMP2 category, a 32.535 as well. Phil Roberts has also invested in some dad jokes, so we're going to collectively grow together. I started investing in stocks, beef, chicken, and vegetable. I hope one day to be a billionaire. Oh dear. Well done, Phil. Well done. I liked it personally. That's very funny.
We really are going in every direction today on this iRacing stream, and so seems the drivers. Sundström having a massive oversteer there. Mattia may be able to profit off that. We can see Mattia gaining and gaining, especially on the brakes there against Sundström, hitting the apex nice and cleanly, and so Mattia is a real contender for the lead here, but Sundström does tend to drive away a little bit. Again, Mattia just improves his lap time. It was last time a 130.5 high, now it's a 130.5 low, and Sundström did a 30.9, but Mattia seems to lose his edge a little bit. Could it be a tire advantage? Did he just lose focus for a little bit? 1.3 seconds is the gap, 1.4 seconds is the gap. He really needs to hurry up because the clock is ticking down, Jesse. Only 12 minutes remain.
We've absolutely been treated this season to this excellent battle between Connection Lost and Nearly on Pace. Neither one of them have had any pace problems. Neither one of them have had connection problems. These are old standing jokes amongst their communities, but they're excellent drivers. They're excellent titans of sim racing as well. To see them go head to head has been absolutely incredible. It is just like they've existed this entire time, but that lap was absolutely horrible for Bart Macha, Connection Lost Racing.
Yeah.
A 32.1, Mikael Sundström, and a 30.9. Are the tires on the Nearly on Pace Acura finally coming good?
What's going on here indeed? Or did Mattia just say, screw it, I'm going to go all in on my ERS, see if I can overtake him, and now he needs to recharge and recharge to maybe set up another attack? Or is it too late? Is a possibility, because well, you can play around a little bit with ERS in these GTPs. So the thing is, with those GTPs, you can only change your ERS mode 4 times. So if you screw up with changing your ERS mode, so let's say you change it 4 times from quali to balance to quali and put it on no build or no regen, then you don't have ERS, and that was going around again. You don't have ERS, or you have too much ERS, which you can't activate. So could be a little game between ERS, and we can see.
Oh, he's right there. Bart Macha's right there.
0.3. Where is Matcha currently going? Can he overtake Sundström anytime soon?
Oh, he's right there. He's got to be super close beside him. Mikael Sundström and Bart Macha going at it nearly side by side there. And I don't know if that is ERS. It's got to be some trickery like that. Maybe Mikael Sundström is the one that was on the button to try and lengthen the gap. And now Macha has responded here with 10 minutes to go. The battle for the overall win is well and truly on. Sundström leads Macha, but it's just that close as we ride on board the Connection Lost Cadillac.
Yeah, and you see he's so close right now that you can see some drive. They both take other lines coming into different corners, which is really interesting to see. So this might, because of that, have some really good entertainment, because well, I always take that line. You always take this line. So the battle can, rage on from there. But we're not there yet. 0.2 seconds. Mattia is almost there. Ooh, a little bit of oversteer there from the car. If Sundström, they now need to lap a TTD car. Doesn't make it all too easy. Could he make up a move? Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be
contact!
contact!
That's contact for both leaders, Jesse.
That's so unusual for these two to have contact in a race like this, but they have done. Macha got in there a little bit hot. Sundström backed them up, and it led to contact. Here it is again, just breezing the rear end of that car, and he spun him out. Macha immediately accepting that that was their doing, not on the power here. That car is not terminally damaged. What they're doing is they're allowing Mikhail to get back out in front. They're going to continue this battle. This is the great thing. When you have a friendship and an understanding amongst drivers like these two have, you can have accidents like that, and it does not matter. It doesn't damage your relationship.
Oh.
It doesn't damage how you race, but it has damaged Bart Macha's car as they are coming into the pit lane.
Yeah, it was, as you can see, Coco coming around. There are lots of spins here today, and Coco, with 8 minutes to go, is no exception. But that mistake, well, contact really was all on Matcha. He was a little too impatient there for my feeling, and as a result collided with Sundström and ruined his own race as well, because it was a really nice battle. Sundström now getting away, 34 point something seconds in the lead, and as a result Matcha had to come in. What a shame, Jesse.
I wonder, because to our eyes it looked like Macha clipped into the back of Mikhail's car, and I wonder if maybe that did not cause more substantial damage to Bart Macha's car. And we're going to see this again. You can see, well, not from this angle, but that looked pretty routine, but from the helicopter blimp angle, you could see that it clearly clipped into the car. We'll see if we can see it here. Look at this. See how he's clipping in there? And sometimes in iRacing, that can cause more severe damage to the car when that occurs. So I don't know if that's what's happened, or maybe Bart had a steering issue after that, just in general. Whatever it was, Bart Macha has come down pit lane in the connection loss Cadillac. That has freed up the nearly on pace Acura. And that is just about it. Radiani has finally come into the pit lane. Remember, the top two or so cars in GTD have still not pitted, and now Radiani's in, so that will leave only Tom Bryant, who has not done their pit stop. Roscom is on an out lap. They just come in a lap ago. Strutsenko has been able to get in front of him. That should be the battle for P2 done and dusted. But now the question is, how close is Strutsenko to Radiani for the overall lead? Remember, Radiani had that little bit of a moment.
Yeah, indeed, but I don't think it's really enough. 6 seconds, you almost can't close 6 seconds in 6 minutes, unless you can, of course. But coming back on the P2 incident with Matcha, I think he got a drive-through or some sort of a penalty, because only getting 36 seconds, you don't get only 10 seconds of damage, and you won't definitely not go into pit lane for that. So it's a possibility. Of course, Portimao is a difficult track. You can get a lot of track limit points. Could be a possibility. And with that incident, which you probably get a 4x or maybe an 8x, we can see the incident points. And as we go look at where is the GTP driver of Matcha, indeed 18 points. That is probably enough for a drive-through of some sort. So I think, but Matcha indeed, Jesse, got a penalty of some sort.
That also helps as we stay on this page really quickly. We noticed I noticed Daly had come down pit lane at some point for an additional time as well. That was also to potentially serve a penalty. And we saw Ted Edwards come in an additional time. I thought that was because they had to. No, that probably was due to them exceeding the incident point limit at some point as well. A couple of cars really close. Radiani, your leader on 16, 2 more off tracks, and that's going to be a drive through down pit lane as well.
Yeah, so for the ones that don't know, if you get most of the races, it depends on the length of the race. But in an hour race like this, if you get 17x, so 17 incident points, you will get, I think it is a drive-through. And a drive-through is roughly 30 seconds because, well, you're driving in the pit lane, which is followed by a huge straight next to it. So you're gonna lose a lot of time, and that's exactly what happened with Matcha. He didn't lost a lot of time because of the damage. He just got a drive-through. He's ruined his own race really, and that's a shame. Can't wait for the next battles though, possibly for next race. But this battle for the lead did end in tears, sadly.
First time today, we saw a little bit of sunshine down into turn one. It can be completely cloudy. It can even be raining in one corner and sunny in another here in iRacing. Not the case today, no rain, but the sun finally peeking through some of these clouds, the haze lifting a little bit here as we get to the conclusion of this race today. One more joke from Phil Roberts today, matched with a girl on an app who only wanted to date 6-foot guys. What a shame, I've only got 2 feet. What do you think about that, Dan?
I read it in chat and I loved it. Keep on coming, Phil, because we're all here for the dad jokes.
Yeah, I think any woman, I'm just going to say this, ladies, if you're listening, any one of you that only wants to, what do you mean, oh no, ladies, any one of you that only want to date 6-foot guys, that's completely unrealistic. Most men only have 2. Don't be silly, be realistic.
Yes, lovely. Well, back to the racing. 3 minutes to go.
Oh, Radiani! Radiani's had an incident. The leader in GTD's off.
Wow, and just as we were talking about this, we talked about it before. Oh, spin around. I think that's indeed in the first turns, and he needs to turn around really quickly on the gravel, in the grass, but it's already too late because he's battling. It looks like he's battling with Stusenko. Here, indeed, he is battling with Stusenko. Yes, he
They're
is
still going
down to turn 5 now. Ratiani wants to go on the outside, but it doesn't work, so Stusenko indeed takes over the lead, Jesse.
2.5 minutes left to go. Radiani, prior to that maneuver, actually was the quicker of the 2 cars for the time being, and now has to get back by him. That was a 6-second gap after the pit stop. It was nearly 10 seconds, but the spin by Radiani has allowed Strutsenko to come through to the lead. There's the leader at LMP2 trying to make their way through, Benjamin Heilman. They'll do that without any further incident, but that will change a little bit how Strutsenko gets into the corner. And oh, a huge bit of opposite lock there. A catch by the Porsche driver in the number 29. This is on here in the final couple of laps.
It is on. It is over for Ratiani, in my opinion, because he's got hot tires now. There's nothing he can do with Strutsenko. Strutsenko is a really fast BMW GTD driver. His last lap time was only 1.7 seconds slower than Ratiani. Of course, it's possible, still a lot on the table. He goes into pit lane, and I'm going to tell you why. Probably because of incident points, because he has now spun around, and there is no way he would come in, lose a battle for the lead like this. Jesse, we've got a lot of penalties.
Yeah, this is the first race this season or that we've noticed that there's been this many penalty points, and that's kind of down to the nature of the racetrack. It's a racetrack that allows you to sort of recover from your mistakes, but it's going to give you incident points anytime you run off. And it's so easy to run off here with all the elevation change and the unsighted corners. So I'm willing to believe you're absolutely correct. Radiani, who didn't sit on the pole today, that was Hilden, of course, but took the lead early, looked to be getting themselves into the championship conversation here down the stretch, and it's all come undone. Strutsenko has been all over this field here today, and now, most importantly, when it matters, he's up in the front. Remember, several little contacts for the number 32 BMW. They were, I think, as low as like 6th at one point, 5th or 6th out there, and they've driven all the way back up to the lead, and they're looking poised to get another impressive victory. And if this is the day that cements Strutsenko as your champion in GTD, it's well earned.
Yeah, indeed it was. I mean, remember as well, he got some damage of that LMP2, which he has now repaired. He got some damage of that turning in Porsche. I don't know exactly who that was again. Could be Conway or Roskam, possibly turning into the side of Strutsenko. And so Stutsenko had a lot of difficulties on his race. Jordan Daly will go on his last lap of the race, but Stutsenko, everything was thrown at him. But as I say again, as a racing driver, you need to be faced with every challenge on the track presented to you, and if you can manage everything almost perfectly, you can get away with a win or a good result. And Stutsenko is a prime example of that today.
That's absolutely well said. The leader coming to the line nearly on pace is going to get it done. And the only Acura in the field today, Mikael Sundstrom, will win a close one here. A nice battle between them and Macha. It all came apart in the end. And the 899 is your winner again here in Portimao.
He's done great, Sundstrom. Really almost avoided all the incident. Did spin around once, but he is a deserved victory here at Portimao. Macha, unfortunately for the drive-through, but he also got a podium spot, a P2, now coming slowly over the line, and that's Jordan Daly in the wall, as if it couldn't get any worse. For the Brit here today at Portimao. Jordan Daly, it wasn't his day, was it? And well, it shows coming through the last turns, spins once again.
I think he's doing
Why
it on
not?
purpose now.
Yes, yeah. he could well be. Jordan Daly finishing last in the GTP category, finishing third in the GTP category.
Benjamin Heilmann just came across the line, and it was a flag-to-flag day for the German driver in the 796. It's a complete victory for Benjamin Heilmann, who is in certain control of that category. Hereford Smith will come across the line, repping Yorkshire T to finish P2. Holland will do the same, but only in third. Strutsenko, the surprise of the day, from fifth maybe all the way back to the win. It's Strutsenko. Excellent strategy in driving. Wins it here today. Consistency is key for the number 32. Theobald Roscom coming to the line for P2. Radiani will finish third, but it will feel very bitter. It'll taste bitter. I'm sure of that.
Coco finishes in oh, he doesn't finish in third. It's I thought that was the BMW driver of Coco, but in any case, Holland finishing in P3, and I think that's, yes, that is indeed, the whole field has finished. And well, what an ending did we have, Jesse, for the lead of the race, not only for the GTP category but also for the GTD category. I truly enjoyed myself today.
Yeah, we had a little bit of everything out here at Portimao today. Portugal never disappoints in general. It's a beautiful country to visit, of course, as well. They've got some fantastic racetracks. Algarve, just one of them, of course, and brilliant racing today. We had a close fight between Sundstrom and Macha, which is something we've seen consistently all season long. Heilmann did something I didn't expect, just drove away from them here today, which is not something we've seen in the LMP2 category thus far, and a battle of epic proportions in GTD. The battle of attrition, I'm going to call it, ends up going your championship leader's way on a day that could potentially cement a championship.
Yeah, I can't agree more. You said it before, and if this cements the Strutsenko championship, then well, he truly did it worthy. And you know, there's nothing really more to say. Sundstrom also having a good chance in the championship fight. So a great race with a lot of plot twists, and can't really add anything more to that, Jesse.
No, you really can't. It was a day that I think a lot of drivers are going to be happy to get out of here. Some drivers are wishing they were racing here every week. Such is motorsport. Folks, we got a full calendar. Indeed. We got a full calendar here at RCI TV. We'd love to have you with us. Remember, you can join any championship mid-season just by going to our website, racerci.com, and hitting the sign-up button. Of course, the brand new Jag versus V12 championship started this week. It was a smashing success, literally and figuratively, of course. Aston won the race narrowly over Jaguar in round number 1, but we will be at Misano in ACC for round number 2 on Monday. Friday championship coming down to the last couple of rounds. Donington Park this week in the Friday GT2 Champ will be live tomorrow afternoon for you. And I've been told that the weather is going to come off very British at Donington Park, the penultimate round of the series. It's been an absolute delight, that GT2 Championship. Very close racing and fender to fender contact all the time in those cars, which, you know, if you're into that, which I am, you absolutely love it. World Tour Championship continues. Round number 3, Circuit of the Americas in just about less than 2 weeks' time, almost 1 week's time from now. And Circuit of the Americas, get your team together and get involved there. iRacing continues next week as well. iRacing going to Mugello, and hopefully we'll see you there. We may or may not be live for that round, but nevertheless, you can still sign up and race Mugello, and of course the final round Le Mans in 2 weeks' time. Wow, all of that to say, we've got a packed racing calendar, and we wouldn't be able to do this without our partners, AK Esports, Driver 61, Fanatec, Digital Motorsports, and Go Setups. You can visit all those folks at the links in the description of the video. Dan, are you with me?
I'm still with you, Jesse.
Okay. Final thoughts on today and what you expect maybe for the final 2 rounds.
I'm expecting a lot of, chaos, maybe a lot of hectic racing. I mean, Mugello, always difficult. Le Mans, a proper send-off, and will definitely be a spectacle. Le Mans is always a spectacle if it comes down to strategy and or door-to-door racing. Mugello probably as well. Depends on the weather conditions as well. Could be wet, could be really interesting. Mugello in the wet. But I do have high hopes if we maybe even see some more GTP, LMP2 and GTT drivers, because as Jesse said, you can still sign up for this competition. I did a race at Sebring last time around and have unfortunately signed out because, well, iRacing can get a little bit too expensive sometimes, but I expect a lot. See if it turns out that way.
Well, folks, thank you all for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed today's broadcast. We ask if you did enjoy that on your way out, you leave a like, a follow, or subscribe. All the above, if you would be so kind. It costs you absolutely nothing, and it lets us know that you enjoy the content. Next week, Mugello, but tomorrow here, ACC action live from Donington Park. I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Dan Van Zutphen and Ash Bibby behind the cameras as always. We thank you all for watching, but until tomorrow, have a good night.